Film career, whether as actors or writers or technicians, is it really difficult for outsiders, for newcomers to find a foothold in the industry, or to at least get space to put the foot in the door?
Honestly, I don't have a sort of clear answer for that, whether it's difficult, because what I feel is that yes, it definitely takes time to break through, definitely takes time to meet people, but at the same time, I must say this, especially in the light of this whole debate that's been going on about nepotism over the last 2-3 years, there is a genuine excitement amongst producers and studios, and I can say this for all of us here, for new voices. So definitely, yes, it takes time to be able to reach the right people, but it's not that we are not welcoming, or the industry is not welcoming to new voices. If it was the case, the three of us wouldn't be sitting here. I came to Mumbai from Delhi, and I'm not exaggerating, I did not know a single person in this industry. I came here with a script that
And now there's not a single person in the industry who doesn't know you.
But you just have to persevere, you have to have confidence in the material that you have to push. But at the same time, also have a reality check, because oftentimes I've met newcomers who have been trying to push a script for about 4-5 years, and then they get frustrated and they sometimes say, nobody's understanding my script. But I think it's very important that if you've been pushing a script for 2 years, 3 years, put that aside and get a new script out. Maybe there's a problem with that script. Maybe the time's not come for that script. Don't hang on to one idea and keep pushing it for 4-5 years and they get frustrated and ultimately just drop out of your endeavor to break into the industry.
Luv, just before the session started, Luv had some very pertinent points about nepotism and about newcomers entering Bollywood. Luv, I would like the audience to hear that.
See, I feel nepotism is just a fancy word for inheritance. And none of us have a problem with inheritance. So, it sounds extremely politically incorrect, but that's the truth. What is nepotism? It's inheritance of relationships, right? All of us basically inherit what our fathers and forefathers work for. It's just that, in this industry, it becomes a sore topic. And I don't understand that. Because the truth is that if that was the only way in, a lot of the guys who are the stars of this industry wouldn't be here. If you see the biggest stars of this industry, they are not from the industry, their parents are not from the industry. And also the point is that even if your parents are from the industry, if your family is from the industry, all it gets you is a foot in the door. Eventually, it can get you a first film or maybe a second film. But after that, it's your work that speaks for you. So, यहाँ पे ना problem क्या है कि and with this I'll come back to how to break through वाला जो question है ना. A lot of newcomers and a lot of people who are trying to make into this industry go through this, victim syndrome, as I call it. It's like, you want to blame somebody else for what is not happening in your life. Right? You are not taking a moment and trying to, like Kabir sir said, that if your script is not working, if it is not being sold for 5 years, just take a deep breath, accept it is not working. Also what happens is, and I apply it on myself, that let's say I reach out to an actor with a script, and I believe it's a great script, okay? That doesn't mean that the rest of the scripts that he has from other filmmakers are not good enough. हम लोग इस चीज में फंस के रह जाते हैं कि मैं अच्छा हूं, आप अच्छे हो इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि बाकी लोग बुरे हैं, राइट? आप अच्छे हो, दूसरा इंसान भी अच्छा है ना. तो उस नेगेटिविटी में ना होता क्या है कि वक्त आता है कि जब न्यूकमर्स दे स्टार्ट ब्लेमिंग द सिस्टम विदाउट रियलाइजिंग दैट मे बी देयर इज समथिंग दैट दे आर लैकिंग. और ये इस इंडस्ट्री में बहुत कॉमन चीज है कि आप मानते हैं कि आप टैलेंटेड हैं, आपके मानने से नहीं होता ना, गलतफहमी भी हो सकती है। मैं मानता हूँ मेरी स्क्रिप्ट बहुत अच्छी है, लेकिन हम बनाते हैं ना खराब फिल्में। हम सबने बनाई है फिल्में जो नहीं चली हैं या सही नहीं बैठी हैं। जब बना रहे थे तो हम सोच रहे थे ना कि ये सही फिल्म है। तो इसी तरह बहुत सारे लोग ना, उनका एक परसेप्शन है इस इंडस्ट्री का और वो उसमें फंस के रह जाते हैं। और सबसे बड़ी प्रॉब्लम ये है कि पीपल डोंट रियलाइज दैट दिस इज एन एक्सपेंसिव आर्ट. So since it's an expensive art, it cannot be detached from business. Right? Money is a very big consideration. It's a very big factor. Business is a very big factor. So a lot of people who initially when they come into this industry, they try to look at it in a very utopian perspective. Right? And that doesn't work. So if you want to break through, you have to be real about it. You have to understand how this whole machinery works. Without that understanding, if you try to break through it, you will not be able to do it.
Anand ji, I'll come to you.
I have a different way to see business, money, and art. Because that comes from where you are coming. Like when I was listening to Luv or Kabir when they were talking about this topic, I was thinking, what is? I'm not being humble here, but I feel that I'm a hardworking man who got his share. मेरा talent से कोई इतना नजदीकी लेना देना नहीं है. I have grown with every film, like you know. The only thing I am very thankful to is that I come from a very middle class family, which taught me to be happy in very little. And in the journey, the only thing I think I have survived with, I don't get frustrated.
Phenomenal quality.
I think वो इस वजह से हो रहा है, अगर मैं retrospect में जाके देखता हूँ चीज़ों को, that is happening because my mom and dad both were teacher. और and surprisingly, they both were artists. My mom was fine arts की teacher. My dad used to sing and paint, but he was a professor in a college. So definitely teacher maybe उनकी choice नहीं रही होगी. And still in bringing us up, the kids, we never felt that they are losing on their ambition or their desire to do something, because I never saw them frustrated. They were very happy people. I think that has flown in, and the journey as a newcomer, in my, when I say struggling days, मैं अगर मुड़ के देखता हूँ, I never find myself unhappy कोई एक रात भी, you know, मैं unhappy सोया हूँ after rejection. So maybe I knew somewhere that मेरे हिस्से का मुझे मिल जाएगा, you know, I'll get something of my own. घर के दाल चावल, अच्छी नींद, this was fine with me, and rest all was, you know,
Bonus.
So I think for when we are talking about newcomers and money, वो जब हम एक point पे पहुंच जाते हैं ना, we start talking about money, and I'm very sure जब लव ने भी अपनी पहली फिल्म बनाई होगी, he was not looking at money, he was looking at कि यार ये audience तक पहुंच जाए, you know. So I think every newcomer, when he begins his or her journey, it's not about money. And same way, when you're talking about today's time, I think this industry was always open to newcomers, and it is still. Tough times, it is not just for the makers, it's for everybody right now. You know, the kind of sync we are looking at. But yeah, I don't think कि multiplex आने के बाद या money game बड़ी होने के बाद newcomers और makers के बीच में एक रिश्ता टूटा है या बना है.
Like Anand sir said, so when I say about money, the perspective is that yes, when you're making your first film, you don't look at the money, but you need to be aware of it in the sense that a lot of time, a lot of aspiring filmmakers come and they will propose a film which doesn't make sense financially. Like when I was making my first film, I knew I was making it with 6 newcomers. What I want to tell is that don't be that guy who wants to make a film with 6 newcomers and want 25 crores for it.
Be realistic.
Be realistic. Okay, it's not about desire to make money. I knew that if I'm making a film with 6 newcomers, I need to make sure that I am able to do this film in a certain amount of money and plan it accordingly so that somebody backs me. Nobody would back me if I would, and this happened with me because the second film that I made, Akashvani, was actually the first script I wrote. But that film needed a budget, and we budgeted it and we tried for 1.5 years, and it needed a budget of 10 to 12 crores, and nobody was ready to put that kind of money on newcomers at that point of time. So I wrote a film which could be made in 4 crores. And when my producer said, let's do it in 2.5 crores, I said, yes, let's do it in 2.5 crores. And I told my associate director, शुरू होने दे. बीच में कौन बंद करता है पिक्चर? हमें 4 में बनानी, हम 4 में बना लेंगे. अच्छी मेमोरी होगी तो रोकेगा नहीं. वो पैसे का कंसिडरेशन उस तरह से है कि आप समझदारी की बात करो. आज बहुत बार होता है सर कि लोग फिल्में लेके आते हैं और ऐसी फिल्म लेके आते हैं जो आपको लगता है कि यार फिल्म सही है, लेकिन आप जो बात बोल रहे हो वो नहीं हो सकती. इस एक्टर के साथ इतने की नहीं बन सकती. एक चीज मैं और बोलना चाहता हूं, हम लोग ना लक को बहुत डिस्काउंट करते हैं और वो नहीं किया जा सकता लाइफ में. किस्मत होती है, मतलब यू हैव टू बी एट द राइट प्लेस एट द राइट टाइम, मीट द राइट पर्सन. उसके बिना नहीं होता है. और वो कैसी चीज है ना कि उसमें थोड़ा सा ना वो इट्स अ कॉम्बिनेशन ऑफ स्मार्टनेस एंड लक. फॉर एग्जाम्पल, an assistant director calling me today, wanting to assist me, is not using his brains. Why he is not using his brains? Because my film is releasing in March. I am editing my film. There is nothing I'm starting right now. I won't be starting something for the next 12 months.
So he's approaching you at the wrong time.
At the wrong time. And you have to be aware of these things. When you're, whether you're an actor, whether you're an assistant director, writer, you have to be aware of कि आप किसको अप्रोच कर रहे हो और किस टाइम पे आप अप्रोच कर रहे हो. क्योंकि उसमें बदल क्या जाता है कि sometimes you get a meeting, but you get a meeting with somebody when he's so occupied that he's able to give you 5 minutes. And sometimes you get a meeting and you are able to get a meeting with somebody when he's so free mentally that he's able to give you an hour. और वो किस्मत है. वो हम सबके साथ हुआ है. हम सब ने ऐसी मीटिंग्स की होंगी जहाँ हमने.
They have started making 4 and 5 films at a time. One film may be in the shooting process, another in the pre-production stage, third at the scripting stage, etc. So a lot of production houses are making mass production. In the sense, they are making more than one film. In the good old days, it used to be one film only. Do you think the pressure for that is so much, the turnover, especially after corporatization, which is again the changing phase of Bollywood? Corporatization के आने से result oriented, you have to show results, result oriented हो गया ज़्यादा, इसलिए लोगों के पास ज़्यादा वक्त नहीं है newcomers के बारे में सोचने के लिए, newcomers को परखने के लिए. Do you think that could be one of the reasons?
No, not necessarily, because I think that again is upon the way the person in charge of that corporate is looking at films. I got my break with Yash Raj Films when Yash Raj was making 5-6 films a year, and I had a script set in Afghanistan about 2 documentary filmmakers being kidnapped by Taliban. There were no songs, no love story, nothing. Aditya Chopra didn't need to sort of back a film like that.
No, I'll just interrupt you here. Briefly, अगर आप बता सके कि what probably worked in your favor, it could be inspiration for many people.
I mean, when I look back at it, I don't know. I just had this very strong confidence in my material, even though it was running against the grain of everything that mainstream cinema was doing, especially Yash Raj. It was loosely based on my own experiences as a documentary filmmaker in Afghanistan. There's a moment in Afghanistan that actually Bollywood saved my life, and that's when I decided that I need to make films. I was getting frustrated with the lack of audience for a documentary, and very quickly, if I tell you that incident, it was just post 9/11, and I was trying to get into Afghanistan
as a documentary filmmaker.
And me and my associate Ranjan Kapoor. And because we were Indians, we couldn't go through the usual route through Peshawar. We had to overfly and go to Uzbekistan, drive to Tajikistan, and we were trying to come in from there. And for 14 days, it was a dead end. Everything, it was Murphy's Law. We wanted to drive across, there was avalanches and landslides. The river was in spate. There was a chopper that we were supposed to take that crashed the day before we were supposed to take it. It was a complete dead end. And finally, after 14 days, we made one last-ditch attempt, went to the airbase in Dushanbe, and there was a Russian helicopter taking off for Kabul. And in those days, fortunately, the Russian economy was not doing so well, so we managed to bribe the pilot with, I think, about $2,000, which was a huge amount in those days, but we were desperate. And he hid us in the sort of medical supplies in that helicopter and took off. It's a 40-minute helicopter ride through the Hindu Kush mountains to Kabul. He brings the helicopter down and he says, jump off. Literally, it was like we were hovering about 15-20 feet above the ground. And he said, jump off, we've given you $2,000, the least you can do is put us on the ground. There's something about the fact that he'll go off the radar and, you know, we are contraband, we're not supposed to be in a military helicopter. We had to hang, and this is exactly where John and Arshad jumped off in Kabul Express. For them it was lower. We had to jump from a high height. We jumped off and this chopper takes off and I'm in the middle of nowhere, 360 degrees, there are only snow-capped mountains, I don't know where Kabul is, and I see this one lone figure walking towards me. He was the stereotype of a mujahideen, 6 feet 4 inches tall, maybe 4 feet long flowing beard, and he obviously was looking at us very angrily because he just saw these two guys jump off a chopper, the chopper takes off, and he was coming, he was Kalashnikov, and saying something very angrily. I promised that's the end of it. I thought this is the way it's been written. I'll be sort of shot through the head somewhere in the middle of the mountains of Afghanistan. Nobody will know where I am because nobody even knows that I've taken off for Afghanistan. And the only thing I knew is that there's a lot of warmth amongst the Afghans for India. And as he was approaching us, I kept saying Hindustan, Hindustan. And suddenly when he heard me, this man stopped, smiled and started singing Mere Sapno Ki Rani Kab Aayegi. When that happened, I realized there is no media more powerful than Bollywood. I need to be there to tell my stories. And that's when I started writing. This was the opening scene of my film Kabul Express. And I came with this. So I had this very strong confidence in my material and I started pushing. I landed up in Bombay. You know, I really, my wife, Minnie, had become the MTV VJ by then, so through I was getting some introductions to the periphery of Bollywood. But I think I persisted, went through a lot of interesting ups and downs, and out of the blue I got a call from the one studio I did not approach, because that's why I say, don't always follow conventional wisdom, it stops evolution. Everybody said, Yash Raj will never do a film like this, you know, they don't do this kind of stuff. And suddenly I get a call from Yash Raj that says, Aditya Chopra wants to meet you. Firstly, you know, we didn't even know whether Aditya Chopra exists. The joke in Yash Raj is that, you know, Yash Chopra created Adi to scare people. And I thought I thought somebody's pulling a fast one because, you know, we had there used to be a show called Pakra that our friend Cyrus Brocha used to do because they're very close to Minnie. I thought they know my struggle, they're trying to do a Pakra on me, and I said, yeah, sure, Adi Chopra. But then something in the tone of that lady made me realize it's a serious call. And I went that day, there was no Brocha at the gate. I went in, the door opened, I went to the first floor, and I still remember, I opened the door, Aditya Chopra was standing, cleaning his reading glasses, and he just looked at me and said, Kabir, I've read your script and I think it's great, when can we start? And that's how it happened. So, you just, as I said, you have to have a lot of confidence in your script, you have to keep pushing. But having said that, suppose I had done this for 3-4 years, and just before this, I did have one script, which I wanted to make as my first film. It was the script of Forgotten Army, which is a show that I ultimately did on the Azad Hind Fauj. I realized very quickly that I'm not going to be able to make this as my first film because it would have taken like 200 crores to make it. And that's why I wrote this script, which got finally made in 3 crores, which is Kabul Express, which was based on my experiences. So I think that is important, that also what your idea is the clutter breaker. I often tell people, youngsters who come to me who try to replicate what is already happening, I've said, why should I, you know, there's a uniqueness in voice, there's a uniqueness in Anand's voice, there's a uniqueness in Love's voice. So I'm thinking if somebody's trying to come and replicate a Anand Rai film, I'm saying, but Anand is there to make it. What is your uniqueness? And that's, I feel, very important. And I all just from my film school who come to me. I said, when I see that film, and if I do, I should be able to say, this can only be made by him or her. And that uniqueness, that signature should be there. And for me, that's what worked for me in Kabul Express and subsequently, because there was something people found unique that, okay, this is a unique voice. Trying to put together entertainment with sort of hard politics or international politics. And till date, I'm still, doing the same thing. But it's finding takers.
Superb. So USP. आनंद जी आपसे जानना चाहूंगा, ये तो सही है जैसे कबीर ने बोला कि कुछ यूनिक पॉइंट होना चाहिए, लेकिन आप उनके व्यू पॉइंट से बताइए जो स्ट्रगल कर रहे हैं, जो इस इंडस्ट्री में आने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं, उन्हें कैसे पता कि कितना सरल या कितना डिफिकल्ट होता है, उन्हें कैसे पता पड़ेगा कि मेरा पॉइंट यूनिक है कि नहीं। हर इंसान ये सोचता है कि मेरी कहानी जैसी आज तक किसी ने नहीं लिखी। हर स्ट्रगलिंग एक्टर ये सोचता है कि मुझसे बेहतर कोई नहीं, ना अमिताभ बच्चन, ना ऋतिक रोशन, ना शाहरुख, ना आमिर, ना सलमान। तो कोई पॉइंटर्स जिससे वो रियलिटी चेक कर पाए, ताकि भटके नहीं, ताकि फ्रस्ट्रेट ना हो।
For that also you have to go through a journey. There is a process. You have to, as Kabir said, that to know that you have your voice, you have your original voice, you have to voice it out. You have to reach somewhere. You have to go and, whether it's an audition or whether it's a script, वो आपको करना पड़ेगा, वो process से गुजरना पड़ेगा. But the point is that क्या मैं उस जैसा हूँ वो जरूरी नहीं, मेरे जैसा कोई नहीं is still fine.
He's actually good enough.
It's good enough कि मेरे जैसा कोई नहीं, it's fine. मैं उसके जैसा हूँ is still wrong. So you have to start a journey. You have to be in love with, like for me, if I can say, whenever I get up and say I'm making this film, at that moment I'm in love with the story more than myself. I can हाँ मेरी रातों की नींद तभी जाती है जब मेरे पास एक कहानी होती है, So that is something which should be there. That love or in our space when we say passionate about it, you should be in love with what you are doing. You should नहीं मिलेगी महबूबा तो भी चलेगा, पर महबूबा दिखनी चाहिए. So you should have that target with you. You should have that journey. You should go for it.
Go for it. Yes. There's a very good thing that Mahavir Jain has done. He has got a lot of producers under one umbrella. Again, I call this the changing phase of the film industry, क्योंकि इससे पहले किसी ने एक बार इम्पा ने कोशिश की थी, कुछ समय तक के लिए चला था. What Mahavir has done is brought a lot of filmmakers under one umbrella, and their resolve is to hone new talent, give break to new talent, etc., etc. Mahavir, while your move is very laudable, tell us how this idea came to you and whose all support you have.
जी कॉमल सर, एक्चुअली ये आइडिया मुझे जब मैं हमारे इंडस्ट्री के सारे फिल्म मेकर से मिलने लगा, जैसे कबीर भाई से मिला, लव रंजन साहब से मिला, आनंद जी से मिला, तो मैंने हमेशा पाया कि आप जिस जर्नी से निकल के यहाँ तक पहुँचे हैं, आप लोग सब चाहते थे कि बहुत सारे लोग और हैं जो अपनी इंडस्ट्री में जगह बनाना चाहते हैं, बहुत सारे टैलेंट्स हैं, न्यू कमर्स हैं, हम उनके लिए कुछ करें. तो आई विल गिव क्रेडिट टू ऑल आवर फिल्म मेकर्स जो इस इनिशिएटिव में साथ में आए और उन्होंने कहा कि इट्स द टाइम टू पे बैक.
और मतलब कहाँ तक प्रोग्रेस हुआ है?
आई से सर कि करीब 3 to 4 फिल्म्स वी लॉक्ड ऑलरेडी, जो न्यू कमर्स के साथ हैं, सारे रिस्पेक्टेड नेम्स हैं और उनमें से कुछ यहाँ भी हमारे साथ हैं. तो वो फिल्म हमारी लॉक हो चुकी है और उसका प्रोसेस स्टार्ट हो गया है. तो वी आर नाउ इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ फाइंडिंग द न्यू टैलेंट्स.
और न्यू टैलेंट आपके पास कैसे आए? स्टेप्स क्या है आप तक पहुंचने के लिए?
देखिए स्टेप्स है 2-3 वेरियस तरीके हैं इसके. एक, हम बहुत जल्दी हमारे करीबी दोस्त के साथ मिलके सारे लीडिंग फिल्म मेकर्स के साथ प्लान कर रहे हैं, वो एक ऐप लॉन्च करने वाले.
Very nice.
तो उस ऐप के जरिए जितना भी टैलेंट हमारे कंट्री में ओवरसीज में भी है वो हम तक रीच आउट कर सकते हैं। वो बहुत ही सिस्टमेटिक एक ऐप लेके आ रहे हैं हम लोग, बहुत जल्दी वो ऐप ऑलमोस्ट रेडी हो चुकी है और बहुत ही जल्दी हम उसको लॉन्च करने वाले हैं। तो उस ऐप के जरिए सारे टैलेंट्स हमारे तक पहुंचेंगे। आप फिल्म मेकर्स उसमें से आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे, डिसाइड करेंगे, आप लोग उसको फाइनल लॉक करेंगे कि इनमें से कौन से टैलेंट डिजर्विंग है और किस तरह से उसको हमें आगे लेकर जाना है। तो एक तरीका ये हो गया। और उसके बाद जैसे आप लोगों के भी बहुत लोगों से आप लोग मिलते रहते हैं, तो आपके ध्यान में भी कोई ना कोई रहता है कि यार ये टैलेंट पे बात है, या ये टैलेंट कहीं देखा है, कोई छोटे से रोल में देखा है, कहीं कोई म्यूजिक सुना है, कभी कुछ हुआ है। तो आप लोग इतने कमाल के जौहरी हैं, तो आप खुद भी जितने मेकर्स हैं उनके ध्यान में भी बहुत टैलेंट्स नए आते रहते हैं। तो वो टैलेंट्स के लिए भी हम लोग प्लेटफॉर्म साथ में प्लान कर रहे हैं।
वेरी नाइस। मैं अब बहुत से स्टार्ट करने वाले हैं, उनके बिहाफ पर मैं ये सवाल पूछ रहा हूँ। अक्सर ऐसे प्लेटफॉर्म्स पर लोग आके बोलते हैं कि नो यू कैन रीच आउट, वी हैव गॉट अ वेरी डेमोक्रेटिक वे ऑफ फाइनलाइजिंग टैलेंट, आप हमको ईमेल कीजिए। लेकिन अक्सर कंप्लेंट ये होती है कि हम ईमेल लिख कर थक गए, हमारे ईमेल का जवाब भी नहीं आता है। नाउ आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड दैट यू meet the talent and you realize that the talent is not worth giving a break to, or the talent needs to brush up on his or her skills etc. But not getting a reply, not even मतलब वो मेल भी आप लोगों तक पहुंचा है या नहीं पहुंचा है, जरूरी नहीं आप तक, आपके असिस्टेंट तक या आपके असिस्टेंट तक, उसका कोई सिस्टम होना जरूरी है। Anybody can take this question.
So I totally agree कि the number of mails which are dropped, उसका हमारे पास 20% या 25% ही हम लोग। But then again, trust for a production house or for a filmmaker, it is very important that he gets these emails or gets these new faces, because एक time पे now what we are facing now, we see that और वो हर decade में और 5 years you feel that there is a certain dryness. कई बार आपको राइटर्स नहीं मिलते, कई बार आपको डायरेक्टर्स नहीं मिलते, कई बार आपको एक्टर्स नहीं मिलते। So that it's very mutual. Definitely inflow इतना ज़्यादा है that people can think that the actors or the new actors or the technician can think कि यार हमें मौका नहीं मिल रहा है, but that process should not stop. ये ज़रूरी है, you know, हमारे लिए भी बहुत ज़रूरी है। Like now if you ask me, I'm very sure हम लोग यहाँ पे बैठे हैं, we in last couple of years, and especially post pandemic, हमें भी लगने लगा है कि now it's a time to have a new crop, or we say we need those new actors, we need new directors also, new writers also. So changing times or post pandemic, a change of thought process will give birth to a new generation.
Kabir and Ananya, I would like to know your perspectives. Kabir, because you've been in this industry for so long. Ananya, because you're just starting out, you know. Is it true that OTT platforms are more open to giving breaks to newcomers than filmmakers? So filmmakers could be OTT makers also, but फिल्मों में वो शायद थोड़ा कतराते हैं because of the first day collections, because आपको box office को target करना है। OTT platform पर box office या first day collections ऐसी कोई बात नहीं है। So is the pressure too much on filmmakers, and therefore OTT platforms are more open to giving breaks to newcomers, or OTT production houses, not so filmmakers or film production houses?
So I don't know whether I could sort of generalize and speak about it at a larger level, but in my experience, yes. In my experience, definitely I feel that the OTTs have been more, for the lack of a better word, courageous in being able to launch. Like, for example, I was talking about, I've only done one web series as a director, which is The Forgotten Army, which was a larger budget than any of my films.
Yes.
And it had Sharvari, who now of course has been signed up by Yash Raj, and Sunny, who just about done one film. I don't think if I was making Forgotten Army
as a film,
there was no studio in Bombay that would have backed it with that kind of budget, with that cast. They would have insisted that I have well-established stars. So in my experience, definitely. There is also an evolving game. Of late, I've noticed with dismay that the OTTs are also in some way wanting to chase established names, not as much as film studios. But overall, yes, I would say that they are more adventurous in being able to cast newcomers, especially if your budgets are in control and it's not a very expensive show. I think they're absolutely open for new talent, and actually a lot of new talent is finding its way on OTT to showcase their talent.
But you did not even have budget constraints, and yet you worked with newcomers. Yeah. So that is the other extreme.
Yes.
Ananya, your perspective?
So I'll talk from a broad point of view. We have produced 40 shows now. You all must have seen Scam, that did well, and Now to Now is out as well. I think for us it's about having a good mix, but 100% we give opportunities to newcomers. We also have a bespoke sort of model, so we create in-house before we start pitching to OTT platforms, which has really helped us massively.